Good morning, folks. My name is Jimmy Bashar with the ISO Stakeholder Affairs Group. It's my pleasure to welcome you to our call to discuss updates to last year's policy initiatives roadmap, which included the one-year annual plan for this year, as well as the three-year vision for this year and the next 2 years. We've updated it to reflect this year's summer readiness efforts which, as you may recall, we began after development of this roadmap last year, which also affected the three-year plan as well. So hence the updates that we will be presenting to you today. I'd like to also introduce my colleagues. With me here today, we have Greg Cook, Don Trethaway, Danielle Tavel, John Gooden, and Brad Cooper, all from our Market and Infrastructure Policy Group. In addition, this call is recorded for stakeholder convenience, allowing those who are unable to attend to listen to the recordings after the meeting. The recording will be publicly available on the ISO webpage for a limited time following the meeting, and the recording and any related transcriptions we request should not be reprinted without the ISO's permission. And lastly, if you have any questions, we prefer verbal questions, although we are monitoring the chat as well. For verbal questions, please push #2 to get in the queue, and we'll be sure to call on you once we pause for Q&A, which we'll do so periodically throughout the discussion. And also, if I see any chat come in, any questions come in through the chat as well, I'll be sure to field those verbally for folks. So with that, I'll hand it over to Danielle.
Thanks, Jimmy. So let's go ahead and move to the next slide. So as Jimmy mentioned, we've updated the 2021 annual plan and the three-year policy roadmap since going to the Board of Governors late last year and the EIM governing body meeting earlier in January. And there are a couple main drivers for the updates we've made. The first is the market enhancements for summer 2021 readiness initiative. This stakeholder process resulted in adding 2 new initiatives to the annual plan, which are the external load forward scheduling rights process initiative and the resource sufficiency evaluation initiative. Further, this intense stakeholder process really drove us to reprioritize some of the initiatives and rearrange the roadmap and annual plan. This meant that several initiatives are delayed to start in the beginning of 2022. Those are the frequency response measures, VER dispatch enhancements, joint owned unit model, and the hybrid evolution initiative. The second main driver for the updates to the annual plan and roadmap is the resource adequacy enhancements. We determined that a 2-phased approach would be appropriate to re-examine the RA requirements to align with the changing nature of resources and load, as well as the tightening supply conditions we're experiencing in the West. So with that, I'll turn it over to John to speak more specifically on the high-level scope of the RA enhancements phased initiative.
Thanks, Danielle. And Jimmy, maybe we can forward the slide. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Again, one of the big initiatives we've been working on for quite some time, actually since October 2018, is the RA Enhancements Initiative. We have broken it into 2 phases, with the first set of issues and changes planned for implementation in the fall of this year for the 2022 RA compliance year. And everybody that is interested in following this particular initiative is aware of these 3 elements: the POSO enhancements, the CPM, expanded CPM authority for local energy sufficiency deficiencies identified, and then our operationalizing storage, our minimum, our SOC, minimum SOC enhancement. So those are obviously well underway. Phase 2 were all the other elements in the RA enhancements, and as we all know, there are about 9 kind of core elements that we were working on in the RA enhancements. Phase 2, the goal was implementation 2022 for RA year 2023, and that included the elements you see here, the UCAP, our RA import enhancements, further refinements to the POSO, and then changes we were going to make on the RA side to reflect changes in the day-ahead market, which were some of the must-offer obligations, bid insertion, and flex RA. Now, let me just say that the only constant is change, and so this is the schedule as we've produced it and the timeline publicly at this point, but let me just say that, you know, given the PUC's Phase 3B2 decision and the 6 months and 5 workshops and workshop report in February 2022, obviously has impacts on the schedule, particularly where there's dependencies where our RA enhancements have dependencies with PUC policy, and that would be on things like UCAP and RA imports in particular. And so don't be surprised or alarmed if, in fact, some of this changes and there's potentially a third phase or a delay. I think the PUC's 3B2 is really targeting 2024 for the RA compliance year. So these are discussions we're having internally, and as we update things here on the roadmap and with MPPF, we will keep you abreast of those changes. But this is under consideration of how this might change. So I just want to alert folks to that reality. But with that, I'll conclude this slide and turn it back over to Danielle.
Thanks, John. All right, Jimmy, let's move to the next slide. So here we have the updated annual plan for this year. As you can see, we've incorporated the 2 new initiatives resulting from the market enhancements for summer 2021 readiness. We've got the external load forward scheduling rights process initiative that will be kicking off next month, and the RSE evaluation initiative that's already underway. And additionally, you can see here some of the initiatives have been pushed to start later this year. These changes are a result of that rearranging we've done to accommodate the 2 new initiatives I just mentioned. So these initiatives are extending the day-ahead market to EIM entities, or more commonly referred to as EDAM, the scarcity pricing and system market power mitigation initiative, and the day-ahead market enhancements, or DAME. And further, we can see on this updated annual plan the addition of the 2-phased approach of the RA enhancements. And as part of our efforts to integrate distributed energy and storage resources, we've added a DR Enhancements Initiative and the Energy Storage Enhancements Initiative that have already been kicked off. So now if we move to the next slide, we'll see how the rearranging of this annual plan has impacted the 3-year policy roadmap. So we can see that the initiatives that resulted from the reprioritization, rearranging, that were initially on the 2021 annual plan have now been delayed to start in 2022. Those, again, are the frequency response measures, dispatch enhancements, joint owned unit model, and the hybrid evolution initiatives, which all have implementation dates set for the end of 2023, which is indicated by that blue diamond symbol on the far right of this slide. This 3-year roadmap also reflects the initiatives that have been pushed to start later this year, namely EDAM and scarcity pricing and system market power mitigation. Those will continue into 2022 and also have implementation dates set for the end of 2023. So with that, let me see if there are any questions or comments. Jimmy, do we have anyone on the line?
As a reminder, pressing pound 2 on your telephone keypad will indicate you wish to ask a question or to make a statement. We do have one on the line. Call, your line is unmuted. Go ahead.
Hey, folks. It's Mark Smith at Calpine. First of all, completely understand that the schedule changes made necessary by all the work they had to do for summer 21. Just one comment that the AS deliverability and real-time optimization effort could very well fold directly into the scarcity pricing stuff. In other words, that could be one of the key components to create some kind of scarcity levels in order to demonstrate the deliverability of ancillary services and to reflect ancillary services shortage in real-time pricing. So I think those kind of fold together, but, you know, obviously that's still a few months away, but I thought I'd just make that observation. Thanks.
Thanks,
We have
Mark.
no further questions.
Yeah, any other questions or comments?
We have no further questions at this time.
All right, well, I think there's one last slide. Jimmy, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, folks, maybe a minute or two more for questions since that was a very quick call. So as I'm going over these next steps, we do encourage any further questions before we do conclude today's call. So as you can see, we have today's call, and then we do intend on presenting this update to the EIM governing body and Board of Governors, EIM governing body later this month, and the Board of Governors middle of next month, as you can see. And then we do intend on holding another call, as you know, to begin getting further into our 2022 process. So you can look for that to be formally noticed in the coming weeks. And as mentioned, today's call was recorded, very short call. So you can look for that to be posted on the webpage, I would think sooner rather than later, given the length. And as a reminder for all calls moving forward, you can always print the chat or save the chats by going to File, Save, or Print, and then you should see the chat drop down there. And I don't see any written questions, so just checking in, Marco, once more for any questions by chance.
We have no questions at this time.
Great. Well, thank you, Danielle and Greg and everybody else for joining. And with that, have a great rest of your day, folks.